For station number 3, you're going to need the handout that looks like this. That's your sentence types and comma rules review. You're going to put your first and last name on it. We're going to do some notes on the front, and then on the back, you're going to do some practice, recognizing sentence types and seeing if you can figure out what rule goes with the comma. So this is all going to be review, but it's been a while since we talked about this since our last station. We've done a little bit as we've done sentences with Crispin, so we're going to kind of put it all together again. So take some notes. A simple sentence has one independent clause, and an independent clause has a subject and a verb. When we put two of those independent clauses together, we can get a compound sentence. So think of like a compound word or a compound in science, two of something. That means we're going to have a subject and a verb with a comma and a coordinating conjunction with another subject and a verb. Or if you really want to step up your writing, you can put that subject and verb in with a semicolon. The semicolon takes the place of both the comma and the conjunction, and then you'd still have another subject and a verb. So those are compound sentences. The last type, the one that we've been working on that you're getting ready to take a test on soon, are complex sentences. And a complex sentence has just one independent clause, but it could have one or more dependent clauses. And a dependent clause is a group of words that starts with a subordinating conjunction and it has a subject and a verb after it. So it's a lot like, an independent clause because it's got that subject and verb, but it's different in that it starts with a subordinating conjunction. And we've been doing practice and listing these and recognizing them. So I want you right now to pause the screencast and then go through and think of as many as you can. If you need to look in your notebook, you can. And then when you're done, you can come back and check your work. This is a good way to study, to see how many you know and which ones you need to study. So it might be a good idea to write the ones that you know right now from memory in one color, maybe in a pencil, and then get a pen or something else to write the ones you don't remember. Okay, so I've got after, although, as though, as long as, and as much as. If you didn't have any of these, add these to your list. Okay, and then you can go through and add any of these that you didn't have. When we look specifically at the W ones, I want you to note that all of the W ones start with WH. I've seen some people trying to label with as a subordinating conjunction, but with is a preposition. It doesn't have an H with it. All right, now let's talk about some comma rules. One of the most common punctuation mark errors that kids make in middle school is with commas. And so when you put a comma in a sentence, you have to have a reason for it. You have to understand why you're putting it there. Otherwise, you shouldn't use it. So the first rule, we've already talked about that, but those are compound sentences. When you have two sentences with a conjunction in the middle, you need to use a comma. Another rule is with transitions. A transition is a group of words added at the beginning of a sentence. They can be taken out, but when you add them to the sentence, they give more description and they add more detail to the sentence. They make connections between ideas that come before and after them. Rule number 3 is a list. A lot like our thesis statements, when you're making a list that tells the topics of your body paragraph, here I made a list of the 3 different slopes that I want to hit at Alpine. Outer limits, comma, exhibition, comma, and Alpine twist. We put a comma with a conjunction to show where that last item in the list is. Then we've got appositives. And a positive is great. Writers use these a lot to show who characters are when they introduce them or explain new vocabulary words. So if you don't go to Alpine, you don't know what upper exhibition is. So there's a comma here that tells you it's one of the only 2 black diamonds. And then the end of the comma tells where the appositive stops. I could take it out of the sentence and the sentence would be fine. But with it, I now know why upper exhibition might be out of my league. And then we've got coordinate adjectives. Coordinate adjectives are adjectives that coordinate and describe the same noun. I've got a trail here, and I've got 2 words that describe it. It's the longest and the straightest trail that's at Alpine. Okay, you're going to make sure you have all of these notes down. And then you're going to get out your pencil, your highlighter, your colored pens, and we're going to do some practice identifying sentences. On the back of your paper, you've got some sentences to label. We're going to do some together, and then you will do the rest on your own, following the same process. So the process is to eliminate phrases. We highlight prepositional phrases, and we bracket infinitives. Then we're going to circle any coordinating conjunctions we find. If we find any circled, then we know they're compound sentences. If we can find a subject and a verb on both sides. And then we're going to box subordinating conjunctions. If we can find them with a subject and a verb after them, then we know that we have a complex sentence. And this is the order we want to look in them. We want to look for compound sentences first, complex sentences second, and then if we can't find either of those, then we know it's a simple sentence. After that, we're going to go through and look at why the commas are there. So the first sentence says, a turbulent river rages through a steep rocky gorge in the mountains of northeast India. So I'm going to go through and find a preposition. I see through. Through what? Through a steep rocky gorge. I've got a noun with some modifiers. And then I see in the mountains and of northeast India. You're going to make sure that there's some kind of separation between these. These are three separate prepositional phrases. So if you ran them together, maybe draw a little line like that. And what we have left now is a turbulent river rages. I would look to see, I don't see any coordinating conjunctions. I don't see any subordinating conjunctions. So I know that this must be a simple sentence. And the sentence is about a river. And what does the river do? It rages. So it sounds like it's a violent river. The next thing I'm going to do is figure out why this comma is here. Go trace that comma. And I'm going to look, it's in a prepositional phrase. And I know a prepositional phrase starts with a preposition, ends with a noun. So it looks like I've got adjectives describing what kind of a gorge is it? A steep gorge, a rocky gorge. That tells me that it's probably a coordinate adjective. And on my list over here, a coordinate adjective is rule number 5. So I'm going to put a 5 here. All right, number 2. Although it was constructed without sophisticated equipment, the 400-year-old bridge is still in good condition. So I see 2 prepositional phrases. Without is a preposition. Without what? Without sophisticated equipment. And then I see in what? In good condition. So now I'm going to go look to see, do I see a coordinating conjunction? Although it was constructed, the 400-year-old bridge is still. So no coordinating conjunction. Now I'm going to look to see, do I see any of the words that I wrote here under my subordinating conjunctions list in the sentence? And I do. Although. So I'm going to put a box around although and think about what clause, what is it saying that although goes with? Although it was constructed. So I'm going to underline all of this, and it actually includes this prepositional phrase. So that is a dependent clause. And I know it's a dependent clause because I've got a verb, constructed, was constructed, and I can ask myself, what was constructed? It was constructed. So I've got a subject and a verb, and then I've got the 400-year-old bridge is still. Well, I know is always a verb. So I can ask myself, what is? The bridge is. Because I found a dependent clause at the beginning, then I know that this sentence is complex. Now I'm going to go look at my comma. I see it here. Go trace it. I see that it's at the end of this dependent clause. If it's at the end of the dependent clause and the dependent clause is at the beginning of the sentence, then I can tell that that would go with rule 2. It's a transition. So I'm going to put a 2 here. Okay, I'm going to keep going until my screencast ends on me. And wherever I stop, you're going to continue working on your own. All right, In fact, it's becoming sturdier by the day because it's alive and growing. I'm going to look for prepositional phrases. I see in fact, and I see by the day. Okay. Now I'm going to look for a coordinating conjunction. It's becoming sturdier because it's alive and growing. I see a coordinating conjunction over here, but it doesn't have a comma with it, so I know that it's not compound. So now I'm going to see, do I see a subordinating conjunction? I'm going to look at my list and see, do I see any of these words in this sentence? And I do, because. Because what? Because it's alive and growing. Now my subject and verb are kind of connected here in a contraction. It is the subject. This is it is. So they're put together. So it is the subject and is the verb. But that definitely still makes a dependent clause. And then same thing over here. It is my subject and verb for my independent clause. So this is a complex sentence. I'm going to go find my comma. I see a comma here after in fact, and it comes at the end of a prepositional phrase that's at the beginning of the sentence. So it's kind of like this sentence. It's at the beginning of the sentence with a comma, so it's the same rule. It's a transition. So I'm going to put number 2. Number 4, this amazing engineering marvel is a Jingkengri, a bridge made of the roots of living trees. Not sure if that's how you would pronounce it. All right, so I see of as a preposition, of the roots. And I see another one of living trees. So we've got 2 different prepositional phrases here. Now I'm going to look for a comma and a coordinating conjunction. And I don't see a coordinating conjunction. I see a comma, but there's no conjunction after it. So I know this isn't compound. Now I'm going to go look at my list of subordinating conjunctions, and I don't see a subordinating conjunction in there, so this must be a simple sentence. What is it about? Well, if I'm not sure, I can always go look for my verb first. I know always is always a verb. And I could say, what is a Jingkengri? A marvel. A marvel is, that's my independent clause. That makes it a simple sentence. Now I'm going to go look for my comma. Here it is. I'm going to trace over it. And I think this is a great place for a comma because I don't even know what this word is. Okay? It's in another language. But I've got an appositive here that tells me that it's a bridge made of roots of living trees. So this is a perfect example of how great appositives are. They give you more information about words that you don't know. And so an appositive is rule number 4. So I'm going to put rule number 4 here. All right, I think I have time to do one more with you, and then you're going to do the rest. If you get stuck, you can raise your hand and ask. If you need help, you can even ask your neighbor and see if you can work through it together, as long as you can do it quietly. The young trees sprout aerial roots above the surface of soil after 10 to 15 years. So I'm going to look for any prepositions. I see above the surface. I see of soil. Oops. And I see after 10 to 15 years. So we've got 1, 2, 3 different prepositional phrases. So now I'm going to look to the beginning. I don't see any coordinating conjunctions. I don't see any subordinating conjunctions. So this must be simple. It's talking about trees. And what do the trees do? They sprout. Sprout means to grow. Okay, so now I'm going to look for my comma, and now I see 2 commas. These commas work in pairs. I don't really know what aerial roots are, but the appositive here tells me that they are roots above the surface of the soil. It sounds like roots that are in the air. So this gives me more information about the noun that it follows. Sounds a lot like this one. It's in a positive. So I'm going to put that